My name's Aaron. I'm 31. I work at a university library, quiet, reliable, simple. A job for someone who likes the calm and doesn't need a spotlight. My wife, Claire, is 30. She's a yoga instructor, graceful, soft-spoken, always composed. That calmness was what first drew me in. She seemed like someone who made the world slower, quieter, safer. We've been together nearly 7 years. Moved from a small town in the east to settle in Larkwood 3 years ago, when I was offered a full-time role at the local university. She was hesitant to leave home, but followed me anyway. That meant something. The start wasn't easy. Claire had to start over, new city, no clients, no friends. We lived in a cramped one-bedroom above a bakery, and my paycheck barely covered rent and groceries. But little by little, things improved. She built a following. I got promoted. Eventually, we found a quiet apartment in a residential neighborhood. More space, more light. Our routines were stable. Life, while not thrilling, was comfortable. Predictable. Maybe too predictable. Lately, I'd noticed she was slipping away. Not physically, but emotionally. She smiled less. Stopped asking about my day. Spent more time out, teaching late or visiting studios. I didn't push. I figured she was tired. That kind of work drains people. I wanted to be the husband who understood. Then came Wednesday. A lecture got canceled, so I headed home early. Claire, according to her calendar, had a private yoga session across town until 9. I thought I'd surprise her later with her favorite noodles and a movie. But when I got to our building, I saw her coat hanging in the entryway. She was home. The door was unlocked. That alone made my stomach twist. Claire always locked up, even if I was just going out for a walk. I stepped inside quietly. And then I heard it. A man's laugh. Deep, relaxed. Then her voice, light and familiar, the way she used to speak to me. Not forced. Intimate. I followed the sound. They were on the couch. She was leaning into him, his arm around her waist. Neither one pretending to be anything other than what they were. She didn't look afraid. She looked like she belonged there. She saw me first. Her expression broke like glass. Eyes wide. Breath caught. I didn't wait for words. I turned and walked out. No shouting, no demands, just the sound of my shoes against the floor, and my whole world slipping behind me. I didn't go home that night. I walked, aimlessly, past closed cafes and quiet side streets, through empty bus stops and blinking crosswalks. It rained at some point, not hard, just enough to make my shirt cling to my back. I didn't care. I didn't even notice until I passed a shop window and saw my reflection. I looked like someone who'd been left behind. Around midnight, I found a bench under a tree near the university. Sat there until the sky started to pale. My phone was dead. My hands were freezing, but I couldn't bring myself to move. I just kept seeing it over and over. Claire, on our couch, in our home, leaning into someone who wasn't me. That man's face. Calm. Like he belonged there. Like I didn't. When the sun came up, I made a decision. I wasn't going to crash at a friend's. I wasn't going to call anyone or explain what happened. I went home. The apartment smelled like her shampoo, the soft lemon one she buys in bulk. I half expected her to be gone, to have vanished into the guilt. But she was there, sitting at the kitchen table. Hoodie, leggings, hair up like nothing happened. She looked at me like she didn't know what to say. I didn't expect you back, she said quietly. I live here, I replied. Silence. I walked past her and into the bedroom. Packed a change of clothes, my laptop, toothbrush. Everything else could wait. I didn't plan to leave for good, not yet. But I couldn't sleep under the same roof, not while her voice from last night echoed in my head. You don't have to go, she said when I walked out. But I did. I stayed at a budget hotel a few blocks from campus. The kind with cheap soap and thin walls. I slept for 12 hours straight. When I woke up, the first thing I felt wasn't sadness. It was something closer to disbelief, like it hadn't really happened. Like if I walked back home, I'd find Claire smiling, stretching in the living room, asking if I wanted coffee. But that version of us was gone. Later that day, I turned my phone back on, for missed calls. One voicemail, all from Claire. The voicemail was short. I'm sorry. I messed up. Please come home so we can talk. I didn't respond. Instead, I sat at the edge of the bed, wondering what exactly she wanted to talk about. There wasn't anything left to say. Not yet. Not while I still saw her hand in someone else's lap every time I closed my eyes. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in months. I opened a blank document and started writing. Not about her. About me. About who I was before I let routine swallow me whole. The next few days felt like living underwater. I'd go through the motions, brush my teeth, walk to work, shelve books, answer emails, but everything felt muted. I'd nod at coworkers, smile when needed, but inside I was still on that couch, frozen in the doorway, watching my life come undone. Claire didn't reach out again. Not by phone, not through messages. And I didn't call her either. I think we were both waiting for what? I don't know. For the dust to settle? For the anger to turn into something softer? Maybe for the other person to blink first. On Friday, I went home. Not to move back in. I just needed clothes. Mail. Something that still felt mine. The moment I opened the door, I could tell she'd cleaned. The scent of lavender spray was heavy, like she was trying to erase everything, the air, the memory, maybe even the man who'd been in our living room. But it didn't work. The silence screamed too loud. She was sitting on the edge of the bed when I walked in, hands in her lap, eyes red, like she hadn't slept in days. "Aaron," she said. I didn't sit, didn't speak. "I don't even know where to start," she whispered. "You weren't supposed to see that." That hit like a slap. Not, "I didn't mean for it to happen." Not, "I made a mistake." Just, "I wasn't supposed to catch her." I looked at her then. Not the way I used to, not as the woman I build a life with. I looked at her the way you look at someone across a closing elevator door. Distant, fading. "How long?" I asked. Her mouth opened, closed. "A few weeks." "His name?" She hesitated. "Jason." I nodded slowly. Of course his name was Jason. "I didn't plan it," she added quickly. "It just happened. I was lonely. You were always tired, distracted. Everything felt like a routine." That part made me flinch. Because she wasn't wrong. We drifted. I'd stopped noticing the way she curled her hair or how she rearranged the living room. I came home late more often. Stopped asking if she wanted tea. But I never stopped choosing her. She stood up. Took a step closer. "I still love you," she said. I didn't move. "Then why did you let him touch you in our home?" She didn't answer. Because there was no answer that could make it okay. I packed a second bag. Left without another word. Outside, the air was cold. It didn't bite. It just reminded me I could still feel something. I started sleeping with headphones in. Not for music. Just white noise, static, rainfall, anything to block out the silence. The hotel room was too quiet, too sterile. It felt like a waiting room for someone else's life, and I was just borrowing time. I went to work. I did my job. I even laughed once, something dumb a student said while trying to find a lost textbook. But when I got home, the air pressed down on me again. I didn't want to think, didn't want to feel. So I cleaned, reorganized, opened folders that hadn't been touched in years. Started running again, just to exhaust myself. I never knew healing could feel so empty. On the fifth night away from home, I saw Claire outside the library. I was leaving late. Some minor system crash had kept me past closing, and she was there, standing near the bike rack, arms crossed, eyes locked on me like she'd been rehearsing this moment. "I didn't know where else to find you," she said. I didn't answer, just waited. "I haven't seen him," she added, "since that night." Still I said nothing. She stepped closer. "Can we just talk? Please." Against my better judgment, I nodded. We sat on a bench near the fountain. It was cold, and she kept rubbing her hands like she'd forgotten gloves. I didn't offer mine. I just waited for her to speak. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, just dimmer. "I don't know why I did it," she said. "I thought maybe I was losing myself. Like we weren't really living anymore, just existing side by side. That gives you permission to betray me?" "No," she said quickly. "It doesn't. I know that. I was selfish." The honesty surprised me. It didn't help, but it surprised me. "I didn't even like him that much," she whispered. "That's the worst part. I didn't love him. I don't even think I respected him." That made me clench my jaw. Because if it wasn't love, if it wasn't something rare and blinding, then what was it? Just boredom? Loneliness? A whim? Was it in our bed? I asked. "No," she said fast. "Never. I swear." I believed her. And somehow that made it worse, that she drew lines while still crossing them. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," she said. "I just needed to say it to your face. That I'm sorry. That I hate what I did. That I miss you." I stood up, not to walk away, but because I couldn't sit in that feeling anymore. I need more than an apology, Claire, I said. I need to figure out if I still recognize myself when I'm with you. And then I left her there, not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I couldn't let her fix what she broke with just words. The next morning, I didn't wake up with clarity or peace or some profound sense of direction. I just woke up, stared at the water-stained ceiling above the hotel bed, and counted how many seconds I could hold my breath. 42. That was the only thing I accomplished by 8 a.m. I skipped work, not because I couldn't handle it, just because I didn't want to keep pretending I was okay in front of people who barely knew me. I took the tram to the west side of town, where nobody knew my name, and sat in a corner booth of an old diner. I ordered pancakes I barely touched and watched strangers move past the window like life hadn't changed. I started writing in my notebook again, not about Claire, but about myself. About the little things I used to love before everything became about stability and keeping peace. I wrote about college, my obsession with astronomy, the novels I never finished writing, and the friend I lost touch with 5 years ago because I got too busy being a husband. That night, I called Owen, my best friend from college. We hadn't spoken in nearly 2 years, not since his wedding. He picked up on the third ring, his voice surprised but warm. I didn't dive into the story right away. I just asked how he was, listened to him talk about his daughter, his job, the leaky faucet he finally fixed. Then, finally, I said it. Claire cheated on me. Silence. Then, damn, Aaron, I'm so sorry. And I could hear it in his voice, not pity, but something heavier. That quiet anger only a friend feels when someone hurts you. He didn't ask for details. Didn't push. Just let the sentence hang there until I was ready to speak again. We talked for 2 hours. He said something near the end that stuck with me. You can still forgive her without taking her back. Or you can take her back and never really forgive her. Either way, it has to come from who you are now, not who you used to be. After we hung up, I sat with that thought for a long time. Forgiveness. What did that even look like? Later, I walked past our apartment. Just once. Just to see it. The lights were off. Curtains drawn. It looked like a shell. A place where someone used to live, not where life happened. And that's when it really hit me. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about everything we stopped noticing. Everything we let go quiet. I moved out of the hotel and into a short-term rental. It was small, just one room, kitchenette, low water pressure, but it was mine. No memories pressed into the furniture. No history in the walls. Just blankness. A clean page. I didn't decorate. Didn't unpack fully. I just let the quiet settle around me. Claire hadn't called in over a week. At first, I kept waiting for her name to pop up on my screen. A message. A missed call. Something. But she stayed silent. And that silence spoke louder than any apology ever could. Maybe she was giving me space. Maybe she didn't know what to say. Or maybe, and this was the one I couldn't shake, maybe she didn't think I was worth fighting for. Work became my anchor. I arrived early, stayed late, buried myself in tasks no one asked me to do. I reorganized the archives, fixed a glitch in the catalog software, helped a freshman find a lost flash drive, and then spent 20 minutes listening to him panic about midterms. I didn't mind. Helping strangers felt easier than helping myself. One night, while filing some returns in the philosophy section, I found a note tucked between 2 books. It wasn't for me. Probably something left behind by a student, but it stopped me cold. In neat handwriting. It's not the betrayal that breaks you. It's that the person you trusted let you doubt yourself. I stared at it for a long time, because that was it. That was the wound I kept circling. Not just that Claire kissed someone else, touched someone else, but that she made me feel blind, made me second-guess my instincts, my worth, my version of reality. I'd thought we were okay and not perfect, but okay. I thought she still smiled at me with love in her eyes. But maybe I'd only been seeing what I wanted to. That weekend, I saw her again. Not planned. I was picking up groceries and she was walking out of a coffee shop nearby. Her hair was tucked under a beanie, no makeup, hoodie too big on her frame. She looked up and froze. We stood there, just watching each other through layers of guilt and history. She stepped forward. "Aaron, don't," I said softly. Not angry, just tired. "I didn't expect to see you," she whispered. Neither did I. We didn't say much more. She didn't ask how I was. I didn't ask if she was still seeing him. We just stood in the shadow of what used to be us. And then I walked away. Not out of cruelty. Not because I didn't care. But because I was done standing still. I started seeing a therapist. Her name's Meredith. Mid-40s, calm voice, direct but not cold. I found her through a university support program. One of those resources I'd always told students to check out but never thought I'd need myself. At first, I just sat there, arms crossed, answering questions with the emotional depth of a filing cabinet. I didn't know what I was supposed to say. How are you feeling today? I don't know. What brings you here? My wife cheated on me. There it was, out loud. Simple, ugly, true. Saying it didn't bring relief. It didn't bring rage. It just sat there between us, like a cracked plate no one wanted to touch. Over the next few sessions, Meredith didn't press. She waited. She gave me space, and in that space, things started to rise. Not just the betrayal, but the quiet erosion that came before it. The way I'd stopped noticing how disconnected we'd become. The way Claire and I had drifted into parallel lives, not out of malice, but neglect. One session, Meredith said something that stuck with me. A lot of people think betrayal starts when someone touches another person. But really, it begins when they stop reaching for you. That landed hard. Because she was right. I kept replaying the early signs, how Claire had slowly withdrawn, how I'd noticed but said nothing, how we both chose comfort over honesty. I wondered how long she'd been lonely, and I wondered how long I'd been too. That night, I wrote a letter to Claire. Not to send, just to say the things I hadn't said. I told her I missed the version of us that used to fall asleep laughing. The mornings when we danced in the kitchen with burnt toast. I told her I hated what she did, but I hated more that I let myself fade so quietly beside her. I told her that I still loved the memory of her, not the person she became, but the one I met 7 years ago, barefoot in a bookstore, arguing with a stranger about which Austen novel was superior. Writing it didn't fix anything, but it reminded me that I still had a voice. A few days later, I got an email from Claire. Just a single line. Can we talk? One last time. I stared at it for nearly an hour. Eventually, I replied, yes, but not at our place. We met in a small cafe 2 blocks from where I live now. Neutral ground. I chose a table near the window, not for the view but for the light. I didn't want to talk in the dark. She arrived late. Still beautiful. Still familiar. But something in her posture had changed. She looked smaller, like someone who'd been shrinking under the weight of everything she broke. We didn't hug. She sat down slowly, fingers wrapped around a paper cup. She didn't speak at first. I didn't rush her. I don't know where to begin, she said. Try the truth. She nodded. And then she told me everything. Claire started talking, and for the first time since all of this began, she didn't sound like she was trying to protect herself. No spin. No polished apology. Just raw honesty. Hesitant, vulnerable, messy. I didn't plan to cheat on you, she said. I didn't go looking for anyone. I swear to God, Aaron, it wasn't some grand plan to hurt you. It just happened. One day I was staying late at the studio to clean up after class, and he was there. A friend of a client. We talked. Then again a few days later. Then he asked if I wanted to grab a drink. I said yes. She looked down at her hands, twisting the lid of her coffee cup like it might unscrew her guilt along with it. I should have said no. I know that. I thought I was just craving attention. But it wasn't even about him. It was about me. About how I'd started to feel like I didn't exist anymore. Like I was just floating in the background of my own life. I didn't interrupt. I didn't nod. I just listened. Because there was no version of this that would make it okay. But I still needed to hear it. When he kissed me the first time, she continued, I felt something I hadn't felt in so long. Not love. Not even attraction, really. Just like I was visible. Like someone saw me again. And I hated that it wasn't you. I hated myself for it. But I kept going back. I kept telling myself I could control it. That I could end it before it meant anything. But it did mean something, I said quietly. I know, she replied. That's the part one can't undo. She wiped her eyes, but the tears didn't stop. I don't love him, Aaron. I never did. He doesn't even know who I really am. And I don't want him. I looked out the window. The street was quiet. A kid rode by on a scooter, bundled in a red jacket, cheeks pink from the cold. For a moment, I envied his simplicity, his unawareness of how easily life can shift beneath your feet. Claire's voice was softer now. I want to try to fix this. I don't know how. And I know I don't deserve a second chance. but I'd spend the rest of my life earning one, if you let me. I leaned back in my chair. Her words filled the space between us like fog, heavy, unclear. I don't know what I want, I admitted. Some days I hate you. Other days I miss you so much it hurts to breathe. But the thing that kills me most is that I don't trust what's real anymore. She nodded, eyes red. I get it. And I'm not asking for an answer today, or even tomorrow. I needed to tell you that I'm sorry for everything. And if you never want to see me again, I'll understand. We sat there in silence. Not hostile, not warm. Just two people holding the ruins of something they once built with everything they had. Eventually, I stood. I'll let you know when I figure it out, I said. And then I walked out. Not with anger, not with peace. Just with the weight of a decision I wasn't ready to make. The days after that meeting felt like walking through fog. Not dark, not blinding, just thick enough to make every step uncertain. I didn't rush back to Claire. I didn't message her, and she didn't message me either. It felt like we were both standing still, waiting to see which way the air would shift. I kept going to therapy. Meredith didn't tell me what to do. She just asked good questions, the kind that didn't have easy answers. One of them stuck with me. What are you grieving more, the person, or the idea of what your life was supposed to look like? I didn't answer right away, but I knew. It wasn't just about Claire. It was about everything she represented. The shared toothbrush holder, the spare keys, the routines we built without realizing they'd one day mean nothing. It was about the family we never started, the summer trip we were planning, the dog we said we'd get when things settled down. It was about the future I thought I was heading toward, and how fast it turned into a dead end. At night, I'd sit on the floor of my rental with the lights off and scroll through old photos. Not out of nostalgia, not to torture myself, but because I needed to see what was real. There were smiles in those pictures. Real ones. There were good years, moments when we were more than fine, more than just surviving. It made me wonder, can love be undone by one terrible decision? Can betrayal cancel out years of connection? Then I'd think about that couch, her body leaning into his, her laugh, and I'd close the phone again. One night, Owen called. He didn't ask how I was, not directly. He just told me a story about his daughter trying to feed chocolate to the dog, and how he'd had to bribe her with stickers to stop. It made me laugh. A real, surprised, stupid laugh. And for a few seconds, I forgot the ache. After a pause, he said, "You sound a little more like you again." "I don't even know who that is," I replied. "Well," he said, "maybe this version of you gets to figure that out. From scratch. No timeline. No audience." I liked that idea. That weekend, I went back to our apartment. Claire wasn't home. I texted ahead just in case. I walked through each room like I was visiting someone else's life. Everything was where we left it. Her slippers under the couch. The chipped mug I always used for tea. My hoodie still hanging on the bedroom chair. I sat on the bed. My bed. Our bed. It didn't feel like either anymore. I stayed there for almost an hour, just existing. Then I opened the drawer of my nightstand and found a small envelope. Claire's handwriting. My name on the front. Inside was a letter. It wasn't long. Just a single page. In it, she wrote, "If you decide we're over, I'll carry that quietly for the rest of my life. If you decide to try again, I'll fight for you every day, not to prove I'm perfect, but to show you I remember how to love you right. I know this is yours to choose, but I needed you to know I'm still here, even if you're not ready to look yet." I folded the letter, put it back, closed the drawer, and sat there wondering which part of me would answer first, the one that remembered everything we had, or the one that couldn't forget what she'd done. I spent that Sunday doing something I hadn't done in years. I left my phone at home and went for a drive with no destination. Just me, the road, and whatever was playing on an old USB stick I found buried in the glove compartment. Music from another life. Some of the songs made me smile. Some hurt more than I expected. About an hour outside the city, I found a hiking trail I used to visit back when Claire and I first moved. We went there maybe twice, before life got too busy and the idea of walking uphill for no reason started to feel like a chore. But I remembered it. The pine trees. The view at the top. The quiet. I hiked alone. There was something cleansing about it. The steady rhythm of my steps, the way my breath synced with the wind, the sting of cold air in my lungs. At the summit, I sat on a rock and just looked. The city was barely visible in the distance, smudged by fog. And somewhere beneath it all, Claire was living, breathing. maybe wondering if I'd ever come back. I didn't cry. I haven't cried much through this whole thing. It's not that I didn't want to. I just didn't know how to start. My pain never showed up as tears. It showed up as silence, distance, disconnection. I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. The fire had cooled. What remained was ash, that dull gray grief that sits in your chest like a stone you can't move or swallow. When I got home that night, I finally replied to her email. I need 1 more week. No contact. After that, we'll meet, and I'll give you my decision. She replied just 3 words. Okay, I understand. And that was it. That week passed slowly. I focused on the parts of my life I still had control over. I rearranged my rental, went to work early, stayed late, cooked for myself, ran in the mornings. I even went to the museum alone on Wednesday, just because I could. Something about walking through a gallery, not having to explain what you're thinking, felt freeing. One painting caught me off guard. It was abstract, just streaks of red and black and white, no clear subject. But the title read, "What's Left After It Breaks." That hit something in me I didn't know was still raw. When Friday came, I knew. I put on the jacket Claire once said made me look serious but soft. I walked to the cafe where we'd last met. She was already there when I arrived, hands wrapped around a cup again, nerves etched across her face like a map she didn't want me to read. I sat down. She opened her mouth, but I stopped her. "I'm not here for another apology," I said. "I've heard enough." She nodded, waited. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized something strange. I still loved her, but I also didn't know if I could live with her. "I'm willing to try," I said finally, but slowly, carefully, "and only if you understand this won't ever be the same." Tears filled her eyes. "I don't want the same," she whispered. "I want better." We didn't move back in together. That was the first rule. If we were going to try again, it wouldn't be about slipping back into what we used to be. There'd be no pretending this was just a rough patch, no brushing it under the rug with a weekend getaway or a couple of shared meals. Claire stayed in the apartment. I stayed in the rental. We saw each other twice a week, once for dinner, once for a walk or a coffee. That was it. It felt strange at first, measured, cautious, almost clinical, like we were coworkers assigned to a delicate project. But that distance gave me something I hadn't had in a long time, perspective. The version of Claire that showed up now wasn't the one I caught laughing on the couch with another man. It wasn't even the version I remembered from our better days. This Claire was raw, stripped, honest to a fault. She didn't try to charm me. She didn't pretend to be perfect. If anything, she was nervous, hesitant, like she expected me to vanish at any moment. "I'm scared every time you leave," she told me one evening as we walked along the river. "Because I don't know if you're coming back." "I'm scared too," I said. "Because I don't know who I'm coming back to." There were no grand declarations, no sweeping romantic gestures, just quiet conversations about small things, our days, our meals, the books we were reading. We talked like strangers trying to learn each other again, one careful piece at a time. We set rules. No unannounced visits. Full transparency with phones and calendars, not forever, but for now. No physical intimacy until I said I was ready. She agreed to all of it. One night, while we were cooking dinner together in her kitchen, she paused while slicing carrots and said, "This is the first time in months it doesn't feel like I'm walking through a minefield." I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized I believed her. The affair hadn't turned her into a villain. It hadn't turned me into a victim. It had turned us into people who finally had to face all the truths we'd ignored for too long. That didn't erase what she did, but it made room for understanding. I told her I wanted to go back to therapy, this time together. She agreed before I finished the sentence. The next week, we started couples counseling with Meredith. At first, it was hard. She had to sit there while I described, in detail, what it felt like to see her with someone else. I had to sit there while she described what it felt like to be invisible in her own marriage. But in that room, with nothing between us but honesty, something fragile started to grow. Not trust, not yet, but the willingness to try. That night, back at my rental, she texted me. "I don't want to be forgiven because I begged for it. I want to be forgiven because you saw all of me, even the worst parts, and still chose to keep looking." I stared at that message for a long time before replying. "Then don't hide. Not from me. Not from yourself." She sent one word back. "Okay." And for the first time in a long time, I let myself believe her. It's been 3 months since we decided to try again. Not to rewind, not to erase, just to rebuild. Slowly, on new ground. We still live apart. That's by choice. We both need space to become our own people again before we can be a couple in full. Every week, we meet at the same cafe, the one where she first asked if we could talk. It's become a kind of ritual. No big expectations. Just time. We talk. We listen. Sometimes we say hard things. Sometimes we sit in silence. Both feel okay now. Trust is a strange thing. It doesn't return with a promise or an apology. It returns in fragments. In the way she texts when she's running late. In the way I no longer flinch when her phone buzzes. In the way she never shies away when I bring up the past, even when it hurts. Some days are harder than others. There are still moments when the image of her with him blindsides me, when I'm brushing my teeth or waiting in line at the store. It arrives like a flash of lightning across a calm sky. But the difference now is, I talk about it. I don't bury it. I don't let it rot in the quiet. And she listens. One night after therapy, we sat in her apartment on the couch, the same one where it all fell apart. The room was different now, rearranged, like she was trying to shift the energy. I noticed the picture frames had been changed, some of the books replaced. The throw blanket was new. "Do you ever think we can be happy again?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. "I think we already are," I said. "Not always. Not all at once. But in small ways. We're showing up. We're not lying. That counts for something." She nodded, then leaned her head on my shoulder carefully, like asking permission without words. I let her, because this was a new part of us, a chapter where every step had to be earned, and she was earning it. A few weeks ago, she asked if I'd consider coming home by summer. Not as a promise, just a hope. I told her the truth. I wasn't sure, but I wasn't closing the door, either. She smiled. Not a wide grin, just a quiet one, like she understood what that meant. Last night, I found the letter she wrote me again, the one I found in the nightstand, months ago. I hadn't reread it since then. I expected it to sting, but it didn't. It felt like a map, not of who we were, but of who we're trying to be now. Honest, bruised, still here. I don't know where this ends. Maybe we'll make it. Maybe one day, we'll fall apart again, but this time, with kindness, not betrayal. I've learned that love isn't a guarantee. It's a choice you make again and again, even on the days when it's hard. Especially on those days. This isn't the story I thought we'd write, but it's real. It's ours. And for now, that's enough.